Hello, this is the humanitarian advocate of CRPHA, of course, and many other advocate things pages that I have that I'm also in charge of. I thought I'd put out my feelings and thoughts of the Big Bang Theory. I know that one the one main character, being the one that played Leonard Hofstadter, he first was on Roseanne in the 1990s as David. He then, of course, when they kind of wrote both Darlene and him off, being that, of course, it was I believe it was the final episode of Roseanne, or at least close to it. Um, he then went into the Big Bang Theory, which of course, at first I didn't see the Big Bang Theory until I saw repeats of it, syndicated aspects to it. But the more I watched it of the Big Bang, I got more intrigued really because it was people. I felt like it was people of my caliber, my intelligence. I mean, yeah, I didn't go into universities and all that crap, but the one thing is that it had the same interest in base of the future, along like Gene Roddenberry and whatnot. Oh, aside from having Leonard Nimoy and a number of other Star Trek um, cast members, besides Will Wheaton himself. Uh, and the one thing though too is that Sheldon Jim Parsons' character did come out a little facetious, I guess, in some respect. Of course, he was only playing a part. I get that Jim Parsons was playing a part, but which I believe that Jim Parsons in his own right is a good actor. Maya Bialik, I can say when before she was in the Big Bang Theory, she I remember watching her one of her first, I guess probably one of her first anyways, if at all, if that was the only first one that she's done, which was the TV show sitcom Blossom in the late 80s, 1990s, somewhere in the early 90s, somewhere in that area, right? I didn't really watch too much of that, but I understood the characters, especially the one that played one of her older brothers, or she both of her older brothers, which of course one of them you don't hear too much from anymore. And of course the one that played, I believe his name was Joey. Of course he started going into trying to compete in a sense with the new kids on the block, of course at the time, or at least that's the way it seemed anyway. Or trying to be like Guns N' Roses at the time. Anyway, Maya Bialik, I'd say when she was a part of the Big Bang Theory, they didn't really too much in with the character at first. Um, Not like they did with Penny, the one that played Penny, of course, which I believe I remember her from, and I could be wrong. Forgive me if I'm wrong on this, but she looked identical, even if she was or is or was not essentially the same character that I saw on John Ritter's last and final uh, sitcom that he did, which was Eight Simple Rules. I do know of John Ritter from the Three's Company and maybe a few movies here and there, but with John Ritter, he had his own comedic style. I mean, it was many years before Eight Simple Rules, many years before he did any of the movies, and he had a comedic style way different than Robin Williams. I mean, yeah, and yeah, I know that even John Ritter did a skit with Robin Williams on one particular outtake that someone videotaped while in a nightclub of sorts, from what I remember seeing on YouTube the last time, anyway. Um, but John Ritter was it was he was one of the actors that you don't see anymore. And you can't really compare him to anybody, really. And I know that many of the cast members of Eight Simple Rules and Three's Company do miss him, especially the one that played Larry. He said at the 40th anniversary reunion, um, uh, when with Joyce DeWitt and the one that played Terry and of course the one and of course Chrissy's cousin that lived on the farm anyway. Although I can't remember her name offhand right now for some reason, but anyway, John Ritter did something in their lives that's never going to be forgotten. I know that. Um, I'm going to tell you straight out. I was born in the 1970s, during the ERA especially, um, which basically I as an advocate support the ERA, but I do not support the feminist movement of today. Sorry, ladies, but I don't. Because the feminist movement of today and the Me Too movement of today is not logical to me. And it's not logical to many other men as well. Anyway, the Big Bang Theory. Let's see. When they had Raj Koothrappali and the one that played Howard Wolowitz. Now Howard Wolowitz came on a little strong at first, even in front of Penny, the one that played Penny, of course. Even he tried to be like the suave debonair hornball of the cast of the group, essentially. And of course, what I liked about the character of Leonard was the fact that that he wasn't really as eager as Howard Wolowitz was, in the sense of trying to attract the opposite gender, being of course the female. He basically played it as if the woman's interested, cool. If she's not, then that's okay too. But eventually, I knew that just like any other show, they'd fix them up, they'd put them together with somebody, even if it wasn't the Penny character. And of course, even with their back and forth thing, like the Ross and Rachel thing was a back and forth thing on Friends, between Jennifer Aniston's character Rachel and David Schwimmer's character Ross on Friends. They did kind of a back and forth thing as well. So in a way, I could see that the creator and producer or director, or probably all three, of Big Bang Theory, which also put together Charlie Sheen's 2.5 Men, and then which of course I know that everybody has disagreements with, which I understand. Where Charlie Sheen was written off, which I understand that too, because of course even the same thing happened to the character that played Greg from Dharma and Greg, that was on Criminal Minds. They wrote him off as well due to his drunken stupor on the set of Criminal Minds. But outside of that, I'd say that I knew he would eventually put Leonard with somebody, even if it wasn't Penny. Although, the one thing I can say, when they did the scavenger hunt episode, I kind of saw Leonard more with Bernadette, really. And I saw Sheldon, the character Sheldon, of course, Jim Parsons' character, more with Penny, really. Especially when they did the sort of think back skit when it came to if Leonard wasn't around, would it be possible for Sheldon and Penny to be an item together. That was, I remember that, at least that was the whole conceptualization of it. I do remember that one. But the way I'm not gonna say the way it ended up wasn't good at all, because basically they eventually got it to where, of course, Leonard and Penny got together, which I'm not against at all. But at the same time, it'd be kind of interesting to see how it would have been turning out, if Leonard were to be ending up with Bernadette. And of course, that would put Amy Farrah Fowler, being, of course, Mayim Bialik's character, with Howard Wolowitz. Of course, that wouldn't really be too good of a mix, although they were written in the episode as one episode to have a moderate, if not minimal, similar interest when it came to music, for example. And of course, you can tell that way they were singing together in Howard's new vehicle after the association with Bernadette and all that. But like I said, it would have been interesting. But again, I'm not saying the way it came out isn't good. I'm not saying that at all. But on a personal note, I'm going to tell you straight up. I have been married before, and I know how to treat women. But the basic fact is that they say that you will meet the one that's truly meant for you. And at one point I thought I did. Didn't turn out that way. Of course, at one thing goes that the person didn't take me for everything I had, which was a positive. Which I still, I mean, regardless, I would still make sure she's okay and everything. But I'd say even with the fact of finding that I enjoyed watching The Big Bang Theory, and I still will, even with it being in syndication. And I'd like to have the episodes of them, like I have all 10 seasons of Friends already. And I can easily tell you that I've mentioned many things that will happen in each episode to a family member of mine, and of course they're not really surprised that with what I remember, because of course I've showed that type of ability before. As Brett Spiner's character Commander Data said on the Next Generation episode, although I can't remember exactly which one, where he said that he remembers everything he's exposed to. Basically, I have the same concept. I have the same ability. And when it comes to Leonard Nimoy, and who was also guest starring on The Big Bang Theory, not really as himself directly, but as a little action figure, but with a voiceover, which was in a regular concept for today's sitcoms, especially. I'd say before he did that, I'd say I took after Leonard Nimoy's character as Spock, though, really, with all his logic and general understanding outside the human concept of understanding things, I'd say probably a lot more than Jim Parsons' character was written in the sense of that. Let's see. And on a personal note, along outside of that, of course, is that if I were to ever have another woman that I could see right now, although I'm not going to say it will change or not, but I found that Bernadette Rostenikowski was pretty fascinating, actually. She was very strong, well spoken. I mean, she spoke out for herself. She didn't wait until Howard spoke for her or anything like that. Even if he attempted to, she would put him in his place a number of times, which is a good thing because many people need to be put in their place at times. And of course, they still cared for each other, which is a good thing. Um, and I'd say at one point I thought maybe Penny's character, with the character Penny would probably be one, but then I kind of re-examined it, um, and then I thought well, Amy, yeah, yeah. Although I'm not saying I'm not saying that Maya Bialik is not a good actress, which she is, and so is the one that plays Penny and Bernadette. But I'd say I'd like to find out of how it would be for me anyway with a woman like Bernadette. Though that's a personal one. But outside of that, um, I'd say the finale came a little prematurely, to be honest, because there was only one thing that they did not do. I mean, they paired up um, Leonard and Penny, did the Ross and Rachel back and forth thing, right? And then they did the same thing, but maybe in a short rendition of it, between Leonard, between Jim Parsons' character Sheldon and Amy Fair Fowler, of course Maya Bialik's character, um, and of course the with and before they paired up Sheldon with Amy Fair Fowler, being of course Maya Bialik's character. Um, and of course, it was maybe a short time after they paired up uh, um, Howard Wolowitz, the character of Howard Wolowitz, with Bernadette. And it's a good thing that she was paired up with him because he was not really set in his place like he should have been even in the first episodes. Although I'd say in some respect that Penny did do her part by setting him straight. But even though violence doesn't really solve anything, but of course sometimes sometimes you don't know what else to do, and even I guess to Penny's assumption was that it would be the only way that he would learn is by that one slight slug, while he was trying to kiss her and whatnot. Of course, the one thing though is that the only person they didn't pair up, and give time to pair up, would be Raj Koothrappali. Um, Raj Koothrappali is the second person I'd say next to Leonard Hofstadter in the sense of when it comes to and of course in between him and of course Howard Wolowitz, when it came to their characters' knowledge when it comes to the exploration of space, among other things. And I mean, granted, I know Raj Koothrappali's character was a astronomer, and connecting with astrology and various other things, I guess. But I guess you'd put it that way, if not beyond that. Because I remember one episode where Sheldon would come in and say his phone wasn't working right due to solar flares, And then Raj interjected and said, "Dude, if there's solar flares, I'd be all up in it." And then of course Sheldon said, "I misspoke," and then he said he tried to claim it was something else. But the one thing is, I'd say they could have given at least maybe another, say, another 6-7 seasons till or so till they were able to pair up and have the cast know and have the characters get to know the other one that Raj was with. Although on another personal note, I now that I think of it, the one that Raj was paired up with as Emily, the actress that played Emily. Even though she was written off eventually, she could have been the one. I mean, instead of having him going from one woman which had some sort of like psychological, medical, emotional difficulties, which I totally more than understand about, much like the some other disorders and whatnot. Like Tourette syndrome, for example. Uh, but I'd say even with the character of Emily's darkness, of what the fact that she liked horror movies like the Freddy Krueger movies or Halloween 2 type of thing, or various other things like that, or like Pet Sematary, among others. On a personal note, I would probably see myself with her in that one too. I mean, with her it'd be basically, essentially, would be between her and Bernadette. I would see myself with, essentially. Although it'd be kind of interesting to mix them all in one, although that would be impossible and that wouldn't really be too logical. But I'd say the one in between before they wrote off Emily, and the one that was that played the bartending woman, blonde chick, that I didn't really see Raj with him. I mean, with her actually, with her. But I saw Raj mostly with Emily, really, because they didn't give much of a shall we say, a variety to pick from, essentially. Although they didn't have to do that for the other the other three characters either. Although, according to the storyline, Howard Wallace, before Bernadette, had the player mentality. That's not really a very attractive thing to women, I know that. But I think with Howard Wallwitz's character and that pretense is that the character of Howard Wallwitz and that pretense I should reiterate on that, and by putting it that way, is that he seemed too eager, which I understand that might have been the whole concept, the whole reason for it. But when a guy seems too eager to get with the opposite gender, it kind of scares him away. And of course, they did the same thing with Fez on that '70s show, where he was also too eager and didn't like the fact that everybody else was able to be paired up but him. But eventually, of course, the one that played Fez, Fez on that '70s show, They essentially paired him up with one from the DMV episodes, off and then eventually near the end of the sitcom, the finale near the end of the finale, they paired him with Jackie, even though she kept on insulting him every chance she got, even from the beginning. Of course, that's really a big turnoff when it comes to from the male perspective. If a woman does that for so many years, and yet you're friends with the friends and that woman that's insulting you, is, it's it's not really logical for on the female's perspective when it comes to the male, because if there was really going to be something positive, then that insulting should not have happened. But I'm not one to judge or anything. But the one thing is that it could have been done differently. But the Big Bang Theory. Let's see. There is one thing though that I do want to add. The one that played Penny, even if she isn't the same actress that played one of John Ritter's character's daughters on Eight Simple Rules, even though she looks like it to me still though. Okay, that I know that even when she does certain parts, you can almost see that she is thinking back of the way it was on Eight Simple Rules with John Ritter. The one thing though is that I saw an interview that she was that was involving her essentially. When it came to John Ritter, is that she was really in tears, which I could tell she really cared for him and everything. And she was way beyond sincere. She was really heartfelt. In fact, when I found out that Ritter passed away, it really got to me too, because I remember watching him on Three's Company, and John Ritter had a very, very, very special talent. Of course, they didn't let him do too much of it on Eight Simple Rules like they did on Three's Company, even though he was a bit older. But he was still too young to be taken away from us, as he was. The one thing though is that I think aside from the Big Bang Theory, I think that she'll always think back to that from time to time as well. I'm not going to say that she'll forget totally, even though no matter how busy she gets, especially even after the Big Bang Theory has finished its last season. And I'm sure in between during the seasons, she's kind of thought back, which I can understand. And if she ever wanted to talk with me, I'd be more than happy to talk with her on that, especially with the other two ladies, the one that played Bernadette, and of course Mayim Bialik, and of course the one that played Leonard, that also played David on Roseanne, and of course the other three, Jim Parson and of course the one that played Howard and Raj. Of course, I'd like to find out how it was he was in the one character that played Kripke. He was able to sound like Elmer Fudd, and I'm not making fun of the character. Okay, he sounded like Elmer Fudd. I'm not making fun of the character, okay? But he did sound like Elmer Fudd, which basically is a speech impediment. I understand that. I understand about speech impediments. In fact, that's as an advocate, I've been advocating in many different avenues, both in the sense of education and many other things under CRPHA. But the one thing is I like to see how he was able to integrate that or iterate that into the character. Although at the same time I didn't really like the way that they had Sheldon kind of make fun of him, which basically doesn't really do much positive for the character of Sheldon anyway. It just shows him that he thinks he's a little bit more than arrogant, which of course you see that day in and day out almost. I'm sure in the real world, but you'd think that with the intelligence that Sheldon supposedly had, you'd think he'd be above that, but such is humanity, I guess. The Big Bang Theory is one of the top shows, and I can see why. Even though I mentioned a number of other shows in between, I'm not trying to put a comparison on them, but but the one thing that the one thing I think that I got from it was that no matter how different people are, eventually people will learn to accept you. But the one thing is, I've gone to the points to where, even while watching The Big Bang Theory, I've gone to the points to where if people accept me, cool. If they don't, I don't give a damn, to be honest. If people like me, fine. If people don't, that's on them, not me. If people accept me for who and how I am, and even if a woman truly accepts me for who and how I am and whatnot else, right, then cool. But if she says she does, but she really doesn't, then guess what? She's not worth my time. And I'm sure that the Bernadette character would go pretty much in the same venue, I guess, or same level in that sense, as I would. And I think that might be one of the reasons why I connect. I feel I would connect with the Bernadette character, and I think the Emily character is pretty much the same way. And if the one actress that played the Emily character wants to talk with me, cool. I'd be more than happy to talk with you. And it better be the actual real Emily character, no wig covering crud either, because I don't deal with that. I've had thoughts of being on sitcoms. I mean, the reason being is because of two main people in my youth, which would be, of course, Henry Winkler, who played the Fonz on Happy Days, the 1977 sitcom that lasted way longer than I'm sure they expected at first. Probably even extending past the Big Bang Theory and the Friends episodes. And of course, Robin Williams is another one. I'd say those two, for me, as when I was growing up, they taught me a lot. And I'm thinking maybe in some respect that a kid that's the age that I was while watching The Big Bang Theory, hopefully they were taught many things, as much as I was taught about the real world when it came to watching Happy Days and Mork and Mindy. The other part of it is that I think Pam Dawson or Dauber, the one that played Mindy on Mork and Mindy, I think she also helped me out in some respect, as while with the fact that while Robin Williams' character was learning things as an extraterrestrial, an alien from another planet, being Mork essentially. They both essentially taught me many different things, in which helped me become the person that I am today, especially. And I think that Happy Days with Tom Bosley and the one that played Marion Cunningham, and of course Ron Howard in his own way as Richie Cunningham, years after he played Opie on the Andrew Griffith Show, that I remember watching as a child on KBHK TV 44, which is now CW 12, Cable 12 essentially. And let me see, who else? Potsy and Ralph didn't really teach me things, but they taught me the let loose aspect of the high school college years. Although I never went to college, I did take college courses like television production to start with. But I'd say the two top ones would be Tom Bosley, as in the sense of the parental aspect. Same thing with Mary Cunningham, and when it came to learning about life and from different understandings, that helped me as well with when it came to parental aspects as well. But the ones as a youth part of it was from Henry Winkler and Robin Williams. I mean, they were really good together. They paired off just as strongly and comedically as it's said that John Ritter and the one that played Stanley, Stanley Roper, and Don Knotts' character as Mr. Furley on Three's Company did. Aside from John Ritter's hammock skit, and his skit that he did while on, I guess, some sedatives that he had or took or something, that he ended up having a plant pot over his head and kind of did the samba type of thing, whatever. Yeah, I'd say those two would be those two, plus John Ritter on top of that, would be the ones that got me into wanting to do acting myself, and which I've tried to go into acting through JRP, essentially, John Robert Powers. Of course, that didn't go well. And of course, at the same time as that, Gene Roddenberry, he's another person I look up to. He had a reality view of the way things could be, and I admire him for that. Roddenberry had the viewing that nobody would ever think, even for his time, for the time of the 1960s to start with, that nobody would have ever thought that a man such as Roddenberry would be so ahead of his time with the what was seen as a concept back then, where he would look so far in the future that it wasn't all about wars, corruption, anarchy, and all that, right? And he even stated a number of aspects of one of them is that it's not going to be all done with one big flash and a boom, and all that. But and he also made some sense in many of the interviews that I've seen him get interviewed about and on YouTube. And I mean, he really opened my eyes even more on that aspect when it came to the future, and which why I became more of a what was then the 1970s as a Trekkie, but now it's known, since the 1990s especially, as a Trekker. And I do remember watching a little bit of Star Trek, the original series, when my grandfather and my mother's brother, my uncle, of course, were watching it. But of course, I just saw little parts of it and went on my way as a child. Did whatever the heck I wanted to do at that time, which is normal. But the more I watched it as I got older, the more I got into it, and the more I went into, like, at least about 2 conventions. I met James Doohan. He was an awesome person. If I met the other ones, like Leonard Nimoy, I can tell you, I would easily be able to tell him exactly, if he was alive even today. I would tell him exactly that I took after him in so many ways, but mostly by the character that he played, and he played it perfectly. He played it with, like, there was no faults, nothing. I mean, he did it really awesomely. Even though I've seen him on various parts of, like, I think it was on Mission Impossible and one other one, anyways, in the 1970s. But of course, I didn't see that until way later, a number of years after. And I know that he enjoyed also doing photography. Nimoy did, anyway. But all in all, I'd say, with my general interest in Big Bang Theory, is basically due to Star Trek, really. And my personal aspects would be, in the relationship aspect, is that I do see myself with a person like Emily, and the one that played Emily, and the one that played Bernadette, Rostenkowski. Um, I'm not going to say I wouldn't date a person that's like Penny, but if the character wasn't so let loose and fancy free as she was in the beginning, then I might have gone to the points where all 3. But at the same time, I wouldn't minus out dating a person like Mayim Bialik character of Amy Farrah Fowler. But I don't know exactly how that would go. Plus, I don't know how well of a general connection that would be, really, in that sense. But I don't know, for some reason, I see myself really with the first 2 I mentioned, which is Bernadette, and the one that played Bernadette, and the one that played Emily. But I'd say that they could have done it longer, to at least to make it a little bit more substantial. Although, again, I'm not saying it didn't end well. Although they could have done the elevator scene in the first episode. Of course, I understand the way they did it when Leonard was explaining of how the elevator became, non-operational. I understand that part of it, but they could have done that, and before they did the hi between Sheldon and Leonard and Penny. I don't know. I mean, I did enjoy watching The Big Bang Theory, and I still will, even in syndication, depending on how long the TV stations decided to keep it on in syndication, especially the cable stations. Even if I don't have cable, hopefully the TV stations keep it on long enough, or even beyond that. Um, there was a number of other things too, but the one thing though with the Big Bang Theory is that there was more of a family unity than there was in the 70 show, or that 70 show. There was more of a family unity in Three's Company, and there was more of a family unity in Eight Simple Rules. There was more of a family unity in Happy Days, as well as Mork and Mindy. And I think that's where, even though Mork and Mindy only lasted for 4 seasons, which was a downer, but there was more of a connection with them, more than you see with most of the ones, even these detective shows. Um, Although in a way there's a family unity with the Criminal Minds aspect of characters from the very early seasons, extremely early seasons, and that would be built on even before they be that of course before they kicked off or wrote off Aaron Hotchner, uh, and before they wrote off Derek Morgan and Gideon. Um, but the Big Bang Theory being, of course, the main reason why I'm doing this video. I think it was really well done, actually. Although, like I said, I still feel that they could have made it a little longer to associate someone with Raj. I mean, Sarah Michelle Gellar being his date kind of offset the finale a little bit. And Sarah Michelle Gellar was good in the Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and she was good in as Daphne on the first um, rendition of the Scooby Doo movie with the 3-dimensional Scooby Doo. Anyway, and in a way she was okay on the second one though too, but not as good as she was in the first one. But I'd say they could have done a lot. They could have had a little bit, at least quite a bit longer to give the character of Raj and another female character, even if they wrote back Emily the character Emily to reconnect with Raj, that would have been a good thing, to be honest. Um, if any of the actors or actresses of the Big Bang Theory want to talk with me, yeah, and any other fans that want to talk with me on about it, please comment below. And do note, I am a very caring person, but at the same time, I don't take no crap from nobody, and I don't take no insults. I'm doing this video because I am a fan of the show. I have been a fan of the show since I first saw it. In fact, I respect the actors and actresses of the show, regardless of their characterizations. And even with the fact that I found that Jim Parsons openly said that he was pretty much like Neil Patrick Harris in that nature, outside of the Big Bang Theory. Um, Even though I know that Neil Patrick Harris announced it, I believe, a number of years after Doogie Howser, MD, and before Neil Patrick Harris went into the Smurf movie, and before he did How I Met Your Mother. Um, but again, I'm not. Even though in a spiritual sense it's not really logical, but I'm not gonna judge one on that aspect. Outside spiritual aspect of things. But I'd still like to talk to the actors and actresses of The Big Bang Theory. And if there's any fans out there as well, you can also comment, and we can probably just talk beyond on the comment section. But of course, the Big Bang Theory cast members that I mentioned to start with, I'd like to talk with you if I can via video. To start with, because there may be a lot of questions, and I'm not going to bore you with any of them right now. But anyway, this is a fan of The Big Bang Theory, as well as many other shows I mentioned that taught me a lot of things as I grew that I mentioned in this video. But and again, the Big Bang Theory cast members that I mentioned, let's talk. And the fans, let's talk. Hopefully everybody has a good day, though. And there may be another one if I can think of anything else to say about the Big Bang Theory.